watch past green rooms.
The
early 30 seconds.
Is the best part
It
of the
is.
show.
Because we don't know we're on. Yeah, we're on.
Good stuff. Great to be here.
Listen, we have over 110. Great. We're in the green room, Don. Awesome. Listen, we have over
Good
110.
morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Green Room. We're at like
Another episode. I don't know, way over 110 or something. But listen, super.
125.
So it's crazy. So 6 years in the clinic, and one of my earliest of friends, and we're so honored to have him in my Florida medical cannabis journey, is a former Kansas City Chief. Listen, when I get guests for the green room, and listen, if the Bengals would have won, last week, then we would have had Reggie, and and listen, what a game it is. Anyway, Nate Eaches, and it's so great to have him. He's not only friend of myself, but also medical cannabis warrior here in Florida, now in Pennsylvania. And listen, one of his greatest, things of glory is he led Pennsylvania to the Ohio-Pennsylvania high school all-star game win. And we always laugh about that. So welcome, Nate Eaches. And I see he's got his Kansas City hat. He's in Arizona, so he's getting up early for us today.
I am. Thanks for having me. No, it's great to be back on. I was on your podcast when the Chiefs played Tampa Bay, I believe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. Right.
So it's good to be back on. I just get out to Arizona, but I'm still on Eastern time. So even though it's 6:30 here, it feels like 8:30. So a.m. Eastern time.
So as a former player and a former Chief, Nate, do you get access to tickets automatically through NFLPA or through the Chiefs? And so how does that work? Because, Super Bowl tickets not easy to get.
Oh man, they're not easy to get at all. I have access to, luckily I know a couple coaches. I know my old roommate, Alex Tanney, is a coach for the Eagles. So if you're a player or coach, you get access first to Super Bowl tickets at face value. So, you get tickets at face value. You get, I believe.
What is that? What is the face value these days?
Ooh, I remember when I was playing, it was right around $900 to $1,100, and that was 10 years ago. So now I would imagine it's probably right around $2,000 to $2,500, $2,000.
That's crazy.
That'd be my guess.
That's your face value.
And I don't know if you saw the tickets this year. The tickets weren't cheap.
Some great stories, and I want to get to them, and we will, because listen, I know you were telling us before we got on, both coaches in the game you have a relationship with, and Nick Sirianni, comes out of Mount Union College, which is Alliance, Ohio. I have a lot of Alliance friends that watch the Green Room every week, so there's a huge connection here. Len Dawson, of course, great former quarterback of KC. So listen, I root for the Browns. Everybody knows when the Browns get to the Super Bowl or win it.
One day.
No, one day. No, I'm gonna have to look. No, I'm gonna have to. It's one of my most jokes. I'm plays 5 times for about 6 months when the Browns win, because I've always said just one before I die, and everybody knows I'm going to be 67 in May.
Okay, 67 in May. Well,
so give us your connections to the game, and I'm really interested in your vision of how cannabis has, how that outlook has changed in the NFL.
Absolutely.
I'm going to open it up to you.
I'll give you a quick rundown on how, both coaches were my coaches. Andy Reid was my coach in Kansas City. And actually, Nick Sirianni was my coach before Andy Reid. Nick Sirianni was the Chiefs wide receivers coach in Kansas City under Andy Reid. So me and him were there together under Andy Reid. And then Andy Reid fired Nick Sirianni and myself. And this is kind of a revenge game for Nick Sirianni, being under the Andy Reid coaching realm, and I was under the player realm, of course. And Nick Sirianni, being the Eagles head coach. But believe it or not, I had this Chiefs hat on, but I don't know if you knew, I grew up an Eagles fan. Oh,
that's right. God, I didn't even think about that, because of course I did not catch it right. Of course, you're Pennsylvania.
Yes, I grew up an Eagles fan.
Eastern Pennsylvania. Sure, of course.
So this game is special to me. Actually, just a fun fact: me and Nick Sirianni have the same birthday, June 5th. But my old roommate Alex Tanney's a coach for the Eagles, and then of course I know I'm so close with Travis Kelce. You may know the name, and obviously the Kelce
Cleveland
brothers.
Heights, Ohio, my friend, and his brother, of course, as well. And listen, you're probably like the Kelsey's mother in this game, about as close to it as can be, to have
That's right.
mixed emotions on what's going on. Yeah, there's a player on each team
Oh, I saw
from
that.
Cleveland
Yeah,
Heights,
I
Ohio.
saw
Barbara,
that.
Kelsey.
I saw it
Right.
on the news, actually.
Oh, unbelievable. She should flip the coin.
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
that's just natural to get done, you know.
I saw they got about 100,000 petitions to flip the coin. But Jason and Travis Kelsey, yeah, the mother may be doing the coin toss, but you got a son as the starting center on the Eagles, Jason Kelsey, and then Travis Kelsey, the starting tight end on the Chiefs. So that's got to be a special game for those two. But
future Hall of Fame tight end, Travis
I would
Kelsey,
say, and
no doubt
center
about
too.
it.
Yeah, center potentially Jason as well. They're both some top players, and obviously Jason. I should say Travis was my teammate in Kansas City back in 2013 when I was still there for a few months. So I'm definitely tied to each team. I know a lot of coaches are still there, a lot of employees, and then I know the head coach really close to the Eagles. I was at an Eagles game this year, and my buddy Alex Tanny was able to throw in a sideline pass for me. I was on the Eagles Titans game this year, so that was a special game. But no, and then when you transition this to the medical marijuana and cannabinoid language, you know, you look about what the NFL has done. They've taken away THC testing completely. So now, when I was there, they were testing for THC once or twice a year. Now it's completely they've taken it away. So they've pretty much told players you could do it.
Was that a collective bargaining? Was that a collective bargaining thing necessarily, Nate, or did it just kind of come out of common sense discussion?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was common sense, because, you know, you look at a lot of the science, you know, if you look at me and Dr. Barry Gordon, you know, here in this podcast, we met, you know, probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
The clinic's been open 6 years, Nate. 6 years.
That's right. You're in Venice, Florida, with your clinic.
Right.
You're in the compassionate care clinic, and me and you met years ago, and we had a lot of these. We had a lot of these talks at these, and there was a lot of sports stars that gave their testament.
Pre-COVID.
But now, yeah, we've finally come to grips on the science.
Yeah,
the science has caught up. I feel like that's why it's gone legal in the NFL, because they realize that there's really no harm. It's just a plant, and there's a lot of pills out there, opioids, that a lot of these players get addicted to, and that's a big problem, obviously. So that, you know, you look at cannabis, just a plant, you know, THC, you know, obviously that's really the one molecule that you got to watch. But, you know, if you do it responsibly, these guys can, you know, take it during the season and still perform well. You know, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to do it before the games, but, you know, if you do it responsibly and do it at night, you know, you get those anti-inflammatories kicking in, you know, you're going to feel good, right?
Well, listen, and I know you're still in the hemp space, you know, up in Pennsylvania, and we'll get back to it. But, you know, I speak to it, and I'm interested in what your impression was, Nate. Of course, I don't know if you're watching the game live when DeMar Hamlin, of course, you know, went down on the field. Right. And, you know, I tell the story, and my guys here have heard it, and I don't want to over repeat it. But back in October of 2000, I was an ER doctor in Barberton, Ohio, and a high school player went down on the field and passed away. And, you know, my only role in the case, because I was in the ER, not, you know, on the field, there was no AED on the field. So my role was to tell the paramedics, hey, I'm sorry, you've worked your ass off, but this one's over. And then talk to the family, the coach, and the players, you know. But ultimately, the AED Heart Act was passed in Ohio, named after Josh Miller, the kid that I took care of. And I like to say that in my 34 years of emergency medicine, that was one tangible change that now saves not only athletes, but people in airports and malls and out in society. And I'm proud that in my emergency medicine career, I saw that change. The modern technology of the AED with the trained personnel on the sidelines to know how to do it. And wasn't it crazy?
Right.
That Tar woke up and asked who won the game, which means he knew what he was doing when he went down, which means he didn't really even see that white light of brain losing oxygen and going to wherever it is we may go. And that's
right. Absolutely.
No,
you bring up a good point.
I'm sure that was fascinating to you as well. And you've seen those changes through the years, right?
Well, yeah, you bring up a good point there, because you look at how, the AED and the CPR was given to Mr. Hamlin on the field there. And, they said that was a big part of, saving his life. And then after he woke up, and, I'm really glad, he's okay. But now, he's raising money, and he has a foundation to where if people can learn AED, because he realized the importance. It helps save his life. So now he's raising money, and he's doing organizational, raises and just getting the word out there that it's so important to know AED and
awesome.
to know CPR. Right.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's truly making the lemonade out of the lemons. And I've retweeted and shared it on physician sites and this and that. So, really a huge shout out to DeMar. But where I bring it in to medical cannabis, Nate, and I think you'll appreciate the analogy and speak to it. Cannabis is an ancient plant, so it's not like an AED modern technology, but there's a new understanding of the plant. We didn't even know the receptors, Ruta, until the 90s. So they knew what THC did in the 70s. But then it was Dr. Meshulam in the 90s that actually discovered the endocannabinoid system, still not taught in medical schools or anywhere else, of significance. But the point is that new understanding and the processing of the cannabis plant into what you've already mentioned, the tinctures, the patches, the ratio products, not just THC, but all the cannabinoids, right?
Absolutely.
And all the delivery methods makes cannabis a unique life-saving solution, right? Because people tell us every day in the clinic, we're doing surveys in our clinic these days, and we're excited about a meeting tomorrow to maybe start to do some legitimate research out of our clinic to know what we know.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we have patients tell us we save their lives literally every day.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not as dramatic as 20 million people watching that shock being delivered on the field. But to me, my second career, I want to see as much impact with cannabis to be accepted as an adjunct and an alternative, healthy way to go through life with arthritis or anxiety or, just the 2023s, as I think I'm going to start to call it, because who the heck knows what this year is going to bring. And listen, Nate, you're up in Pennsylvania right now. And God, we have so much I can even ask you. What's your vision of what's going on down here in Florida right now? Because somehow we popped right into football and other things, but we always talk politics in the green room. But you're in Pennsylvania right now.
Right.
But listen, you went to Colgate, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Right. Well, listen, that was my old brain working because I didn't do the research last night. But listen, what's going on in Florida right now at the college level with removing of books and new college being, demolished down here? I mean, do you have some vision of that from up north now?
A little bit. And I would love to quickly talk about like the science of you said, like the endocannabinoid system and learning the receptors and getting people to know the science. So, when I talk about,
now what if Governor DeSantis suppresses that? Seriously,
right?
No, I mean, maybe it's too woke, for him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he knows anything about the endocannabinoid system, but when I tell people when we talk about how cannabis can relate and help the human body, all mammals have this endocannabinoid system. And I know this is the science. This is what you probably tell a lot of your patients, that we all have CB1 and CB2 receptors in our brain and in our organs. And when we take in the CBD or the THC or, these cannabinoids working together, it creates a homeostasis. It creates a balance in our bodies. That's why, CBD can help stop little kids' seizures, help people with Parkinson's disease, PTSD, MS, cancer. That's a big word, but you've heard a lot of these stories, right? So you've seen the NFL make the transition to where now they're not testing players for THC. But how does that translate over into politics? We talk about, your Florida governor. There's some good things. A lot of people say good things about him. There's maybe some weaknesses about him. I don't know all the politics in Florida, so I don't know if I'll necessarily talk about Ron DeSantis and like medical marijuana and his stance. I'm not really too sure about what his stances are, but I know, the federal talk still, up in the air. A lot of states have come around to say, hey, I know a couple states passed recreational marijuana that was on the ballot this past November at a lot of the elections, right? But unfortunately,
The feds.
medical.
I wasn't trying to force you into being pro or con on our governor. Listen, he's got a lot of power, all the power down here, quite frankly, in Florida. That's the easy part, but a lot of supporters. So, I don't throw spears or arrows at him. I'm respectful. But the point is, we don't want anybody to get into his ear and say the conservative base somehow wants you to be tough on cannabis. Okay.
Well, I mean,
I-
the conservatives conservative here and
Well,
even conservative on
you know that.
cannabis, we know that every which way. I mean, everything is actually pushed back a lot more, even.
But in
for-
Pennsylvania, you have Pennsylvania's medical cannabis program, of course, Nate. And it's actually known to be a pretty good program with
Is it-
some research going on.
No,
No, it's not
it's not.
recreational,
Oh,
it's
it's
strictly
not?
medical. Have you found it to be on par with Florida's program? Better, worse? Don't really know, no opinion.
Better or worse, I would say, Florida, you got to give Florida credit. They passed medical marijuana, and I believe, was it 17?
It was the election of 16, and we opened up our clinic in January of 17, January 3rd.
That's right. So, I mean, I give Florida credit. They were on board, the fastest. So, you got to give Florida definitely some credit there. Pennsylvania, they were, I believe, the following year that passed. They definitely have a lot of stores, and they've their system has worked well. I've actually spoken to one of the medical marijuana clinical registrants that's doing research. They're called PA Vital Options. They're actually Penn State University. They're working with their medical school to do medical cannabis research. So I've actually been working with that. His name, the CEO is Thomas Trite, and he owns 6 stores across the state, and he's actually doing some of the medical cannabis research out of Penn State and Penn State Medicine. So they're definitely proactive in Pennsylvania. If I
They put
I don't know
research
exactly
right
how
into they put research right into their program.
right into it.
In a very appropriate manner
Yeah,
through
which
the
is actually
through
very
yeah
good. It should
yeah
be
that
done
was
that
one
way.
really good thing they did up
That's
there.
awesome.
But when you say stores, Nate, you mean MMTCs?
Yeah,
equivalent
I should say, like,
sure.
the clinics where you can go, you have to show your card, and then you can you either go in and do a pre-order, or they have like the touch screens where you can go in and actually do the order in the store, or you can tell the tenant, or you can tell the person waiting on you, what you like, or they'll give you recommendations, right? But it's funny. The state's it's a little backwards with their policy, so that they're selling flour. I actually have my medical card. I'll be honest, I have my card. I go in and get flour, but it's in the policy, it's illegal to smoke it. It's illegal to smoke the flour still, which is like a little backwards, right? Like, I guess you have to either vape it or do some other way. But I'm a flour guy. I'll roll one up or pack one.
That's Ohio as well, and I hate those type of rules, Nate, because it's like having a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit in Texas. I mean,
right?
You can't put rules out there that people are just going to ignore, because I think it rips at the social fabric, right, of people that really want to follow the rules, and that's what my quarrel has always been with cannabis reforms, this, that, whatever.
The American Lung Association always is coming down because it's still inhalation and smoking. So I think that's where that comes from. It's still kind of related to that.
And then we're still in the hemp space and the CBD space. What do you find up in Pennsylvania to the extent of the Delta 8 impact and 10?
Delta 8, that's a good question.
Well, no, listen, because I'm really interested in your view of it, because I'll let you give yours first, and then I'll come back with mine a little bit. But it's what you do, and I'm interested in its impact.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know Delta 8 is one of those questionable cannabinoids, and when you look at about what is Delta 8, it's by definition, it comes from the industrial hemp plant, and it's sold in stores legally across state lines. But the minute you ingest it, it turns to THC. That's the loophole. So, that a lot of people don't realize that, but you have some states that have caught on and they've banned it completely.
Well, it starts as THC, Nate. It's just Delta 8 THC, and it's
right.
We actually have a diagram in the clinic because we show patients now the difference, and it's really just where that little silly double bond is on the ring. And
Gotcha.
When you go from 9 to 8, it's key that may fit in lock but doesn't turn an open door, right?
Right.
And it may have effects. We're not quite sure, but to me, it's the solvents left over, what created it. Most of the Delta 8 has Delta 9 in it. surely that are sold at gas stations and other things, because it's, as you know, how is it regulated in Pennsylvania? Is there actually any type of state
Testing.
clearinghouse testing before it hits the shelves? Any
Yeah.
guarantee for anybody buying it that it really is Delta 8, 10, 6, whatever they say it is?
Yeah. So I believe Penn State, or in Pennsylvania, I should say, it is legal. And so I don't really know if it's brought in, has been brought into the policy. My father being a former state representative for 14 years, I'm paying attention to the policy.
That I did not know, actually.
Yeah, my father was actually he was in the House of Representatives as state representative. He was there for 14 years, and he was actually the majority leader of the House for 2 years in Pennsylvania. So he definitely has some recognition up in Pennsylvania in politics. But in terms of Delta 8, I believe it's still legal, and I know other states,
it's legal.
they've
It's
banned
absolutely legal.
Yeah, I know some states have banned it because of the whole the THC and all that.
States are doing various things with it. The offensive thing to me, Nate, that we see now are that, really it's a dishonesty amongst the purveyors, not every one of them. But when you have a dishonest purveyor who tells a uneducated consumer who walks into their smoke shop or their booth at the flea market or whatever, and they literally say all THCs are the same, right? Then they're giving that false impression to the uneducated consumer.
And to me,
it's interesting because 8 supposedly is weaker than 9, but O and HHC and all and P, these are supposedly stronger. So we just wonder, legislatively, be it nationally, be it state by state, somebody's got to get a handle on it.
Start to regulate it a little.
Right?
Yeah.
And these are the things that don't get done without educated people like you and I. So maybe Representative Eachus may happen again in Pennsylvania. No, not former.
New one.
What the heck are you doing up there in Pennsylvania?
Oh, well, my father was in
Make that
politics,
impact.
but you may see me
politics.
make a run. You may see me make a run down the road. But when you look at like the Delta 8, it's sold in gas stations, and even sometimes CBD sold in gas stations. Sometimes the products that are sold in gas stations are the worst products on the market. Unfortunately, you have a medical clinic, reps. I don't know if you sell the products in the store, but your name is like more reputable, so people want to feel like they can get Delta 8 from a doctor, or CBD from a doctor, because you go buy CBD in the gas station and people say it doesn't do anything. Well, those products in the gas station are the cheapest products.
I have an extremely strong, and I mean it. We've never sold a product out of here, Nate, because we've always had that attitude that we do what we do. We try to do it the best we can. Absolutely. And it's hard to source products,
No,
and that.
And you don't want to put, I don't think, like, as a reputable physician, nobody wants to put their name behind something that they don't even know.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not regulated enough, and it's not tested enough. So you don't want to put that out there.
Listen, if you would run for a political office, Nate, and now I'm coming at you from a serious bent because I didn't know that passed to the extent of name recognition in whatever district it is that your dad decided, whatever. Listen, people, we got George Santos somehow. No, did you see what went on during the State of the Union? No, I thought the State of the Union was interesting because it almost looked British at certain points. Did you ever end up watching it?
I did.
I watched.
Biden was engaging with them actually during. I don't know if you watched it, Nate, yourself.
I did watch it. Yep.
But George Santos plopped himself on the aisle seat like about 5 down, so he would be there to like shake everybody's hand. And Mitt Romney called him out for it.
I did.
No,
I saw that.
Just get out of here. Get up the back row up with Matt Gaetz.
Little Matt Gaetz.
FTG or whatever.
Yeah. Line your way into Congress.
People get in with a hell of a lot, and you have, Nate, and I mean it. You're intelligent. You've always been a spokesman for the things that you stand for. And I say that you can really bring a unique voice, of reason. We have this young man from Florida, Matthew Frost, who now is the youngest member of Congress right now. And he's on the Oversight Committee. And actually, just yesterday, he kind of made his initial appearance because he's very late in the questioning because he's got no seniority. So he gets to listen to all the other nonsense and this and that. And then if you're smart at the end, you can kind of pick up on all this nonsense. And that's kind of what he does. but you would be an unbelievably young, fresh face.
Yeah, the new
listen,
the new governor, Josh Shapiro, that just got elected.
Sure.
I'm close with him. My father served. They were in the House together. So they were both House of Representatives. So I know him well, and I've also been working with State Senator Sharif Street out of Philadelphia. He's pro cannabis and pro hemp. So I have been actually getting myself tied into some of the Pennsylvania politics on hemp, cannabis, marijuana, and moving it forward.
Because I really think from a public health standpoint, getting a handle on that gray market, you know, what I don't know how you, I call them the opposite of the boutique cannabinoids. I call them the rogue cannabinoids, right? We know what Delta 9 THC does. We're learning what CBD and the other CBC, CBG, this and that. We don't need to complicate the world with the Delta 8, just products that are now being put out there, in my humble opinion, for profit, you know? So
Right.
I think really an important part that a logical discussion brings to a legal adult use system is getting a wrangle on that stuff, you know?
Well, don't you think it's gonna go away? Like, I think the only thing is, once it goes, if it goes fully rec in someplace, why would you bother with Delta 8,
Well,
all that crap? Because you know it's crap.
It does, it melts
It's
away.
gonna melt away,
Yeah,
and so they're making their
it
money all
does.
they can. It's like,
For
you know, it's like the snake oil, you know, it's here for a while and it's gonna disappear.
Let's talk football. So listen,
Absolutely.
listen, Patrick Mahomes is an amazing athlete to me, Nate. And just talk about playing through pain, you know, and getting to the highest level, with every
Absolutely.
pun intended. But I mean, when you have a high ankle sprain like that, it's interesting. You speak to it.
Oh,
A
man.
low ankle sprains tends to be a little bit more unstable, I think, to a certain extent. High ankle sprain is more stable, but painful as hell. So you can see certain times when Patrick came down on that leg, but he's unbelievable in playing through pain. It almost focuses him more.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Patrick Mahomes, he's a freak athlete. The guy's got some freak genetics. You know, the guy rolled his
Quarterback for
ankle.
KC.
The guy rolled his ankle in that game. We all saw his ankle and his knee go like this, and it went the other way. And he sucked up that game against the Bengals. So they beat the Jags and then the Bengals.
Right.
And then they got to the Super Bowl. But he was gimping around. But now you give him 2 weeks, you know, to get in the ice tubs, to heal, to get in the, you know, to get the anti-inflammatories going. Hopefully he's not on any of the opioid, you know, hopefully it might be, maybe he's taking some CBD for the inflammation, a high CBD, low THC product, now that he's able to. But yeah, you give that guy now a couple of weeks off, you know, he'll be back. But back in the day when guys got ankle sprains, what would they do? They gave you a shot of the opioid and they said, go ahead and play. Well, now, you know, we're on this call, you know, you're a medical cannabis doctor, right? Now we're transitioning, times are changing, and now we're able to maybe use we can rub a cannabis cream right on and it does the magic, you know?
Yeah, listen, our patients tell us about the topicals, you know, but and how well they work. We really didn't even talk about them when we started because they weren't making them yet at the dispensary level and patients weren't using them. But now it's a part of those surveys that we do to the extent of the different routes.
People use it.
Right, the topicals.
Right.
Sure.
Tinctures, topicals, soft gels, roll-ons, soaps they have now. So I guess whatever your product of choice is, but now, you know, they have every product, you know, known to man in terms of they have it in a liquid,
And developing,
a roll-on, a paste.
And developing more, you know, and that's what we need to insist upon as we go forward towards any type of legal adult use, you know, from medical. Of course, the game will be won on the lines, as most games are, and that's
So,
one that, you know.
What about predictions?
Well, we get there,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
Tough. No, it's gonna be tough for Nate because he's got all that cross, but I know he's wearing the KC hat.
I got the KC hat on, but I'm actually rooting for Philly, believe it or not. You know, growing up Eagles fan, I'm going to say 34, high scoring game, 34-31 Philly by a field goal at the end of the game. So I'm going to say it's more high scoring game, but I think Philly has the best overall team, but I think the quarterback, who is the best quarterback, Mahomes is the best quarterback. He'll probably win MVP if it wasn't already announced. But you know, the guy's a little bit injury, you know, lately. So we'll see. And both teams are a little bit banged up. The Chiefs, all their wide receivers have been out. I know Hardman's out. So they need to get healthy as well. But you know, it's definitely going to be a great game. That's for sure. But I think Eagles win by 3.
And listen, we have so many Eagles fans in our practice. You know, I tell everybody it kind of goes, well, we had tons of Buffalo fans, tons of Bengals fans,
Yeah.
Browns fans, completely irrelevant, Detroit fans too. But seriously, we got tons of Eagles fans. And I'll always remember one patient early in the practice. When did the Eagles win one? Was it about 5 years ago, I think?
5 years ago.
5 years
And actually,
ago.
a quick funny stat for you quickly. So
Sure.
5 years ago, the Astros won the World Series. The Warriors won the title, and the Eagles won the title. And this year, the Astros won, the Warriors won, and the point is the same three teams that won 5 years ago.
They're still up.
If the Eagles win, it's the exact same three teams that won in the NBA, the Major League, and the NFL. The same three teams: the Warriors, the Astros, the Eagles 5 years ago, and then if the Eagles win, it'll be the same three.
Yeah,
it's like we're like going back in time here.
that's
It's
unique. Yeah, that
interesting,
doesn't
but
happen very often. But I had a
Yeah.
patient early on in the practice who was a Eagles fan, and I saw him right before the Super Bowl. He had a pancreatic cancer, and hey, he was hanging on, you know, for the game. And yeah, that, you know, and then he did pass, you know, shortly thereafter. So, you know, listen,
sorry to hear that.
it's well, you know what, listen, but he got the enjoyment. You know, I tell everybody about end of life. You don't know how you're going to go at the end of life, but I surely don't want to be sitting in a nursing home on Sundays if my Browns are in the Super Bowl wearing black and yellow as the Steeler colors because the nurses got confused. And I want to have my brain intact for as long as I can to enjoy just those simple things like the sandbox type of stuff. And, you know, Nate, listen, you played, you were there, you know, the emotions, you know, and for certain cities, and Kansas City is one of them, and Philly sure is too. And I'll give a shout out to my Northeast Ohioans. They do live through their sports.
Oh, Boston too.
And of course, you know,
Boston does too.
so you know, that sandbox is still active and it's still a joiner, I think, of communities, you know. It does.
Teams.
We do. And we need more of that in this country, not less.
It brings people together. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You know, when people are busy with work and they feel like sports can just be their little getaway to watch the game for 2-3 hours and take their mind off of
So
work and go to sports.
before we close the green room, so there's the game, of course, on Sunday, but there's parties before. So are there some good Super Bowl parties?
He's like,
Yeah, okay, good.
He's like,
There are. I get into some of the events.
Send me a couple pictures. I don't know if there's a 420 specific party because it is Arizona, you know. So just keep me vicariously if you would be so kind. That's all.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Me being a former player, I'm able to get into some of the events. I have to register, which is pretty cool. I've registered. There's one each day between now and the Super Bowl. So that'll be cool. And like you said, Arizona is recreational. So you probably will see me, at a dispensary, maybe probably getting some pre-rolls. But actually I'll have to do some research because there could be some 420 events or cannabis themed events. When I was, I guess it was probably 4 or 5 years ago by now when the Super Bowl was in Houston, I flew out I didn't go to the game. I just flew out. There was a cannabis event on like a Thursday before the game. So I came out, networked, talked to people about cannabis, talked about the endocannabinoid system, about the science, and, that it's all in all mammals and all humans. And that we have cannabinoids, within our body, that we take in the cannabinoids, we have cannabinoid receptors, right? And then there's these terpenes, we have linalols and lavender. We have in lemons, there's limonene, that's a terpene in lemons, right?
And it's so much better than it was 6 years ago when we started, Nate. I mean, you and I are both glass half full type of guys, so I know you're out there every day in doing that. Keep doing it. You can recruit me a guest or two for future green rooms, tell them Dr. Barry wants them. But no, seriously, and when you come to Florida next, please make sure I know it. And I'll make sure I drive to wherever you are and we'll sit down and have some lunch or something.
Absolutely.
Way too long that I had a chance to give you that advocate's hug. But I want to wish you all the good luck on Sunday. Yeah. And listen, I know Eagles fandom is deep. And if you're rooting for the Eagles over the team that you put the jersey on for, then I know how significant that is. So do you keep that quiet in the KC circles to a certain extent, or do people kind of know that you have that mixed blood circling around in you?
I think if you really knew me in high school,
guys that know
you really knew that I was an Eagles fan, a diehard growing up. I actually was at the Eagles it was the Eagles Patriots Super Bowl in Jacksonville back in when I was only 12.
Wow.
And the Eagles lost. My father actually was able to get a hold of some tickets. I went to that Super Bowl and they lost, and then they obviously won in 2017. But but it's tough because, you know, being a former player with the Chiefs and, you know, my two teams is kind of a win-win for me. So it's definitely a special moment. But I know we're wrapping up here. But I want to say thanks so much for having me and
No, thanks for
having me on
coming
this.
Awesome.
And we should definitely get together and have some lunch when I'm down in Venice. You know, if I'm at one of the conferences, because me and you, Dr. Barry Gordon, we usually see each other at these cannabis conferences over the years. You know, we've probably seen each other 10 times at different conferences because we travel. You got to travel to educate people, which is good.
I can't wait. And listen, stay healthy, stay safe. Best to you and your
Good
family.
luck to both teams.
Yeah.
For all of those listening.
And everybody enjoy Super Bowl Sunday.
And real quick, what's your prediction? Do you have a prediction, or based off you've watched both teams all year?
I'm kind of KC, 35-28, something like
Yep.
that. I just see Mahomes leading a final drive or just
That's
I don't
right.
know. He's too good.
He is really good. So